This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Sir Terence Conran is the man who's helped redefine the look of the urban world, the way people design and build their homes and their offices, and also the way they eat. He's the man who started the famous Habitat chain of stores in the 60s, later the Conran shops, and today he also runs some of the very best restaurants in the world. For all that, he's an acknowledged master of the retail business. Sir Terence, thank you very much for talking to Star News.
Great pleasure to be here.
In 1964, when you began your first famous venture in the retail business, the first Habitat shop in London, it was an immediate raging success. It seemed to catch the pulse of the time. What do you think really was the reason for the success, the instant success of the Habitat chain?
Well, I think it was a time of great change in the UK. The music business, the fashion business, and why not the home as well. And I'd seen what had happened with places like Bieber and Mary Quant. I'd seen, the Beatles, the enthusiasm for a new way of life. And Habitat was my contribution in that revolution. It was also, I think, because young people, for the very first time, had a bit of money in their pockets and they could make their own decisions and not just simply follow what their parents told them to do.
It was a matter of style, wasn't it?
It was style and an understanding that design can add quality to life. It was wanting to be part of change.
It was about that time that you first came to India to source materials out of India for Habitat, and it's been a very, very long association with India since. How do you think India's contributed or been an important feature of the many stores that you've begun in design, in home furnishings?
Well, India was enormously important, and especially a man called John Bissell, who'd come over from America to help the cottage industries produce and export products from India. I met him and was able to work with him to get small quantities, at that time very small quantities of things specially made for us. Wonderful quality, wonderful color, and very reasonable prices. Fab India became the perfect supplier to Habitat in those early days because of the flexibility that Indian craftspeople showed.
I once heard a very amusing story of how John Bissell and you in the mid-60s went to the little town of Panipat outside Delhi, now of course a big textile center, but then sort of rather half-baked, struggling semi-industrial town. And when you looked at the weaves that they were producing, you said, why don't we order Dakotas and fly them straight out to London?
I think that's probably very true, because I got so excited about what was available, and suddenly, it filled a great gap in the marketplace in London for, reasonably priced, colourful, really lovely things for the home. And, really a lot of Habitat's success was due to the products that we were able to bring from India.
So Terence, what would you say are the pitfalls of the retail business, which tends to be a very fickle and changeable business? You yourself have been through many ups and downs. You started with Habitat, which you no longer own, and then you went on to create the Conran shops and so on. But why is the retail business so tricky?
Well, it's quite often to do with people's taste. It's very much to do with the economy, and during my business lifetime, I think I've known 4 recessions, some of them absolutely deep. And you have to keep, the exciting thing about the retail business is that you have to keep your finger on the pulse all the time. And if you ever take your finger off the pulse and stop listening to people and stop offering innovation to people, then that business will die. We have a terrible, sad case in England at the moment of the decline of Marks and Spencer's. At one time, everybody thought they were a totally impregnable retailer. They were the retailer that everybody admired. They took the finger off the pulse and they didn't measure how people's taste was changing. And the consequences are dire.
Do you think one of the problems is that retail businesses tend to sometimes grow too large in this world of business takeovers? In your case, for example, Habitat grew and grew and acquired Mothercare, Richard's Shops, British Home Store next, and then eventually got overtaken itself.
Yes, I do think so. And I mean, one of the reasons I left Storehouse to start again, if you like, in a smaller way, because I knew that that I couldn't keep the finger on the pulse of this very large organisation, and it was partially, of course, to do with the fact that the Habitat Mothercare BHS was not a takeover; it was a merger. And I could say, I think that we should do this, and the other side would say, well, we don't agree with you. And so there was no firm, clear direction. And certainly in retailing, there always has to be somebody at the helm who has a vision.
And that magic touch is a thing of identity.
It's identity. It's building a brand in people's minds that is important, that they aspire to. But it's also that ability to innovate and produce ideas that people didn't know they wanted, and to produce goods that when they see them, they said, oh, that really excites me. It's, it is the fashion angle, the style angle that we can all sneer at, but in fact it keeps things moving along.
You once described your credo for retail as follows, and you said that so long as a thing was well made, well crafted, of decent quality, and above all sold at affordable prices, people would buy it. Does that hold true throughout your long career?
I think it does. In retailing, in restaurants, whatever, that is still my philosophy, and still our philosophy in all our businesses.
To move on, in India, as you know, we're midstream in the middle of free market reforms.
I do.
And, there's a slightly confusing scenario as far as retailers and small businesses are concerned. On the one hand, small businessmen complain that they need government protection and subsidy and feel threatened by foreign competition. On the other hand, they also complain that there's too much government interference. How do you think in a situation like ours things will shake out?
Well, they will shake out, of course, because India and Indians are above all else market traders, and they love the marketplace, and they will find ways around it. And when the foreign competition does come to this country, it will be good for India, in my opinion, and probably not so good for the foreign competition, because Indians and the flexibility in manufacture in this country and this sheer entrepreneurial spirit of Indians will certainly succeed. Yes, of course, in any marketplace there is always a shake-up. You just go to a street market and you find two stalls next to each other selling the same thing. They both remain in business. How do they remain in business? Because they have some angle. There is a lot of ingenuity in India, so I don't think I would be worried if I was an Indian retailer.
I mean, it isn't a coincidence that India gave the world the word bazaar.
Absolutely not.